May be seated. Thank you all for coming, and a very special welcome to the families and the friends of the graduates, and to our many alumni, many of whom are here for this 10th anniversary of historic graduation. We thank you all for coming. You're here seeing history made, and it's an honor to have you with us back here in Little Rock. We also proudly welcome the members of the University of Arkansas Board of Trustees, including our founding dean, Senator David Pryor, and we thank you all for your continuing support. We're honored to have former Governor and First Lady Jim Guy and Betty Tucker with us. Thank you, Governor. I appreciate everyone who brought items and donations to the Arkansas Food Bank through our Giving at Graduation initiative. I hope it will encourage high schools, colleges, and universities all over the country to promote their own giving at graduation. On December 5th, 2001, in this spot, we had the groundbreaking for this school. President Clinton, who had the vision for the master's degree program focusing on leadership through civic engagement, was here then, and we welcome him back today. We're honored to have you, Mr. President, as our commencement speaker, and given the demands on your schedule these days, we are very grateful. Thank you very much. Also with us in 2001 and joining us today is former Mayor Jim Daley, without whose leadership this school and the revitalization of downtown Little Rock would not have happened. Mayor Daley, thank you. It's also great to have our current mayor, Mark Stodela, who is one of our professors and who has worked with many of our students. We're honored to have UAMS Chancellor Dan Ron, UALR Chancellor Joel Anderson, and Clinton Library Director Terry Garner. Thank you all for being here. Today we especially remember Dr. Tom Bruce, our founding academic dean. Dr. Bruce, as some of you know, died earlier this year. And last night we presented the first Bruce International Student Prize to a graduate. This was a prize that Dr. Bruce set up knowing that He had a terminal illness. He set this up before his death, and we were honored to present it last night. You know, I'm reminded of Tom Bruce in many ways, but nothing better than the words from this great hymn. Give thanks for the past, for those who had vision, who planted and watered so dreams could come true. This 10th graduation class exemplifies Dr. Bruce's vision, and certainly if he were here today, he would be among us. This class received the Little Rock Nine's inaugural scholarship. You were McClarty Global, Catherine Davis, and Starting Block Fellows. And you were Margaret McNamara, Lee Williams, and PEO International Scholars. You traveled to 26 countries for your international projects, from Cambodia to Croatia, from Paraguay to the Philippines, from Ireland to Liberia. You changed people's lives for the better. You did such a good job. You did such a good job that we had more international organizations requesting future support from Clinton School students than ever before. But you are also strong in service at home, from Bentonville, Hot Springs, Little Rock, Monticello, Newport, North Little Rock, Pine Bluff, and Texarkana in Arkansas, to Chicago, Grand Rapids, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Philadelphia, and Washington. You left big footprints. And again, because of your work, we already have a record number of state and national organizations seeking Clinton School student partnerships for next year. As Dr. Alma Mater says, outcomes matter. Class of 2016, you delivered. And on behalf of our faculty, staff, alumni, and volunteers, we salute you. Thank you. It is now my privilege to welcome someone who is no stranger to our campus. In fact, he has participated in many of our Sturgis Hall programs and is beyond the doubt the state's leading voice in higher education. Recently he said, and I quote, "The cost of higher education is a question. The value of higher education is not a question." With his steady, thoughtful, and progressive leadership during very challenging budget times, he serves with distinction as president of the University of Arkansas System. Please welcome Dr. Don Bobbitt.
Well, thank you, Dean Rutherford, and let me add my warm voice of welcome and congratulations to our graduates. I'm honored to bring you greetings and congratulations today on behalf of the entire University of Arkansas System and our Board of Trustees. As president of the system, commencement season represents one of the most satisfying aspects of my job, as I get to meet our many new graduates and join our faculty colleagues, your family and friends, in acknowledging and celebrating the very hard work and dedication that encompasses your degree today. Clinton School of Public Service is a unique member and partner in the U of A system. It is a program that combines teaching and practice to provide students with knowledge and skills to pursue public service. Like the U.S. Marine Corps, public service does not accept applications, only commitments. Congratulations to each of you on your achievements, but thank you for your commitment to a higher ideal. I actually shared a stage with President Clinton over 12 years ago when we dedicated Senator Fulbright's statue on the University of Arkansas Fayetteville campus, and we celebrated the successes of the International Exchange Program that bears the Senator's name. As I remember that day, I did my 3 minutes, and then the President, using no notes, gave a compelling 25-minute talk that mesmerized an audience numbering in the thousands. After the ceremony, I asked my wife, as I always do, how I did, and she remarked, "Well, I guess I forgot that you spoke." So, to avoid further embarrassment and marital strife, I will be brief. I want to thank Dean Rutherford, Associate Dean Hoffbauer, and the Clinton School faculty and staff for all of your efforts to shepherd these graduates to the finish line in what is not only a unique program, as I mentioned, the U of A system, but one that provides a graduate school experience that is unmatched across the country. As you know, the Master of Public Service degree is meant to embody the vision and model the work of today's commencement speaker. Mr. President, we are truly honored to have you with us today, And I'm particularly thrilled that you're here to witness the growth and development of this school founded in your name. The UA system recognized the potential for this school from the day you chose Little Rock as the location of your library. With your vision and the help of others, including founding Dean Pryor and our late friend and former Associate Dean Tom Bruce, this school was established as a standalone member institution in the U of A system. This was done because the university and its Board of Trustees recognized the important role this school would play in higher education in Arkansas and really across the country and the globe. In fact, the role the Clinton School plays in harnessing a student's inspiration to pursue public service should not be overlooked. We live in a hyper-connected age that often can provide information overload for folks attempting to find their way in the world. And for those who are inspired to a career in public service, there are no shortage of problems and issues in need of attention. However, the simple desire to do good does not in itself create an effective public servant. Rather, it is education, mentorship, and hands-on experience that provides us with the tools we need to make a difference. And that's really where this program comes in. It has adopted a service learning pedagogy that was well before its time when the school welcomed its first class in 2005. Through the combination of coursework and field service projects, these students have not only learned how to serve, they've made a difference in Arkansas, across the country, and indeed the world through their projects. In fact, I'm proud to know and tell you that two U of A system member institutions were the beneficiary of their excellence, including the UA of Arkansas Campus for Medical Sciences and the new University of Arkansas online university, eVersity. They do important work, this class, in improving health and education levels in our state. Mr. President, it's fitting that almost 12 years ago you stood in this very same spot to dedicate this wonderful center. While we're fortunate to have a little bit better weather today than we had then, we can reflect back on the dedication to see how far we've come. On that day, you expressed hope that young people would come here and learn that public service is a noble calling and that they would hopefully feel inspired to pursue a calling in their own lives. Well, all we have to do is look out at today's graduating class to know that your vision has become a reality. These students have no doubt been inspired by your legacy of public service, and this school has given them an outlet to put that inspiration into practice. Mr. President, thank you for your leadership and vision to make this school a reality. President John F. Kennedy, at a similar commencement address over 50 years ago, told the graduates that you cannot do all the good the world needs, but the world needs all the good you can do. So I know I speak for the Board of Trustees of the University of Arkansas system, as well as the faculty, the staff, and the administration of this institution, when I say that we're proud of your accomplishments to date, but also eager to learn more about your successes as you leave here to make your mark on your profession and society and to do all the good you can do. Thank you and congratulations, graduates, and thank you for allowing me to share this day with you.
Thank you, Dr. Bobbitt. We're honored to have you here. 10 years ago, as a member of the Clinton School's first class, Vivian Flowers completed her team-based field service project in Helena, her international project in South Africa, and her final individual project with the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights in Washington. After earning her Master of Public Service degree here in 2006, she joined the University of Arkansas for Medical Science to lead its student diversity recruitment efforts, and now is Chief Operating Officer for the UAMS Center for Diversity Affairs. In 2014, she was elected to the Arkansas House of Representatives, becoming the first Clinton School graduate elected as a state legislator. She was re-elected in 2016 and represents part of Jefferson County, including Pine Bluff, where she lives. Strong in her convictions and through her progressive voice, she is a tireless advocate for the underrepresented and the disadvantaged. Introducing the commencement speaker, who also spoke at her graduation. Please welcome a very distinguished Clinton School graduate, the Honorable Vivian Flowers.
Wow. Class 10. I'm sorry I have to do this, y'all. Holler if you hear me. Okay. President Bobbitt, Dean Rutherford, faculty and staff, and my fellow alumni, and I know that there are about 55 of you out there, if you can shout. Yes. Of the University of Arkansas Clinton School of Public Service, family, and guests. It is my honor to introduce our commencement speaker, Arkansas's favorite son, one of the most admired men in the world. He really needs no introduction, which is what makes this task a bit daunting, but a great honor nonetheless. Most, if not all of you, know the fascinating life story, political challenges and successes, and accomplishments in public service that have spanned over 40 years and counting. Between the newspaper, the internet, television segments, my life, the autobiography, and widely viewed films like A Man from Hope, The War Room, Clinton, one of the most successful politicians in modern history, there aren't very many morsels of biographical tidbits or bulleted accomplishments that you have not consumed before. But on this day that we witness the 10th class of the Clinton School of Public Service, students officially transition into public service careers and life's work. Please indulge me just a few minutes, and I promise just a few, to remind you of the enormity and significance of the life and service of our speaker and this school's namesake. Hope in Hot Springs, Arkansas, Georgetown, Oxford, Yale, University of Arkansas School of Law, the Arkansas Attorney General and Governor's offices, and the White House have all been not stepping stones, but these big climbing boulders on the pathway of public service that has literally changed billions of lives throughout Arkansas, our nation, and the world. Governor Clinton led groundbreaking improvement in education, health, and economic growth in Arkansas, including universal kindergarten, the creation of HIPPY, and a 10-point increase in high school graduates going to college. President Clinton led the longest economic expansion in Arkansas history, with more than 22 million new jobs created, the most ever during any single administration, conversion of the largest budget deficit in American history to the largest surplus, an achievement in the lowest government spending in 3 decades with the lowest federal income tax burden in 35 years. During a period of the lowest unemployment in 30 years, we saw the highest home ownership in American history and more families owning stock than ever before, with higher incomes at all levels and the lowest poverty rate in 20 years. President Clinton oversaw raised education standards and achievement, as well as the largest expansion of college opportunity since the GI Bill. Family Medical Leave Act for 20 million Americans, with the lowest teen birth rate in 60 years and lowest infant mortality rate in American history. The most diverse cabinet in American history, which he brought with him, that legacy. He started that in Arkansas as well. And around the world, President Clinton led nuclear warhead deactivation in the former Soviet Union, peace in Northern Ireland, Haiti, Somalia, and Yugoslavia, and historic diplomatic achievements all over the world, like the treaty between Jordan and Israel. And in the last 16 years, former President Clinton has not stopped putting people first. Remember that? The cultural, economic, and public service impact that the Clinton Presidential Center right here in Little Rock, the Clinton Foundation in Harlem, and that the Clinton Global Initiative in Manhattan have had on people, villages, and communities across the globe measure in billions. That's billions of dollars and billions of lives. I expect, as the nation's first gentleman, he will continue to impact lives. His example of bold leadership and record of public service are what excited me to intern for the Clinton presidential campaign, the Bill Clinton presidential campaign in 1992, and what inspired me to pursue a master's degree 11 years ago here at the Clinton School of Public Service. And so it is my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce to you the 42nd President of our United States, William Jefferson Clinton.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. First of all, I want to thank Vivian not only for her introduction, but for her life of service. Those of you from Arkansas know that anyone with her last name from the place she came from just sort of carried a lot of expectations into life. She has more than fulfilled them, and I'm very proud of her. Dr. Bobbitt, thank you very much for your leadership, for your support of the Clinton School, for your memory of that day when we dedicated the statue to Senator Fulbright. For me and untold numbers of people in my generation, he taught us in this small landlocked state that we lived in an interdependent world decades before most of his fellow Americans figured out that it was true. Dean Rutherford, thanks for a lifetime of friendship and for your devotion to this school. Thank you for your announcement of the Bruce Scholarship, and we wish you were here with us today. I thank the faculty, the staff, and I thank all the people from the University of Arkansas who are here, but I do want to say a special word of appreciation to Joel Anderson for ending 45 years of service to the university. Thank you. I sort of resent him, actually. He looks kind of like he did 45 years ago, and I look like I belong in some natural history museum, but I forgive you. Senator Pryor, Governor Tucker, Betty, Mayor Stodela, and former Mayor Daley, thank you for your support. I want to congratulate the graduates, their family, and friends who are here today. When we started this school in 2004, I had a fairly simple idea, and I get a lot of those, and some aren't worth a flip. But this one was pretty good. My idea was, after spending all those years as president and governor and attorney general and teaching and working with law students, many of whom were the first people in their families ever to go to college, some of whom had graduated from dirt poor, segregated, deeply underfinanced institutions, who were among the smartest people in their classes, but had never been taught even the basics of grammar. It's hard to forget how far we have come in those decades. That it was one thing to give a speech about change in a political campaign and quite another to achieve it. And that in an increasingly interconnected world, the greatest personal rewards would come, not financially, but personally, in a more peaceful, harmonious world, if people actually knew how to do what they wanted to do. And so we set up this school with a simple idea that Academic disciplines were important. It was important to know as much as possible and to understand as much as possible. In a crazy world where knowing and understanding are often devalued in public discourse, but it mattered more to figure out how to turn your good intentions into positive changes. The 10 classes that have passed through this program, and especially yours, have more than exceeded my wildest dreams, and I thank you for that. I want to thank you for living the change you advocate. For the 660 projects in 78 countries that these 10 graduating classes have completed, more than 230,000 hours of direct field service, even giving back during the graduation ceremony to the Arkansas Food Bank. Your service, your compassion, your commitment, and your understanding about how to manifest it to advance the common good are more needed today than ever before. I have said this so many times it grows boring, but the truth is you do live in the most interdependent age in human history. The internet, mobile technology, the rise of the social media have unleashed both incredibly positive and negative forces. The last few years have seen an incredible explosion of economic, social, and political empowerment. The trend lines are better than the headlines almost everywhere, and certainly here. On the other hand, these same forces have laid bare the incredible power of persistent inequality, political and social instability, and identity politics based on the elemental, almost visceral proposition that our differences are far more important than our common humanity. At the root of all the conflict in the world today and here at home is a simple, profound, and ironically, very, very old question. Will you define yourselves and your relationship to others in positive or negative terms? If we're bound to share the future, it seems to me that all of us have a responsibility, each in our own way, to build up the positive and reduce the negative forces of our interdependence. But as circumstances ebb and flow and challenges mount, that is often harder to say, harder to do than to say. There are many people who feel that the modern world is a losing proposition to them. They think other people don't see, don't know, don't care about them, or see them as members of groups they feel threatened by. So this class, by what you have done and what you will do, must and can offer an alternative vision of the future. One of shared prosperity with more opportunity, more upward mobility, and less inequality. One of shared community with more cooperation and less conflict. And one of shared humanity, where every day the definition of us gets a little bigger and the definition of them gets a little smaller. You have to provide that alternative vision of the future. My foundation has done a lot of work over the years in the hills of Central Africa. And I often like to say nobody's got any wheel transportation there, so people walk everywhere. And when they meet on mountain passes or hilly paths or in the flat savanna, one will say, hello, how are you, good morning. The answer translated into English is, I see you. What they are really saying is, I actually do see you. You matter. It's an incredibly empowering statement. Maybe without knowing it, the work you do in Arkansas, America, and around the world requires you to see people who are often unseen. You've worked with small dairy farmers in Malawi, supported early childhood education, and combated human trafficking in Cambodia, helped people in rural India have access to clean energy, helped to expand education for indigenous communities in Panama, brought Muslim and non-Muslim groups together in Europe to overcome distrust. You've helped make anti-hunger programs here in Arkansas more efficient. This is really important. Just think about all the people. Today, yesterday, and tomorrow, we have all failed to see. Today, several of you will go to a restaurant after this and celebrate your graduation. Will you see the people who serve the meal, prepare it in the kitchen, clean up after you leave? Do we see people we pass on the street? Do we notice whether they have a smile or a frown, or whether they seem to be carrying an unbearable burden? When we advocate so passionately for the causes we believe in, do we anticipate the adverse consequences of the changes we seek on people who are more or less innocent bystanders to the problems we seek to solve? At the root of all this is a very simple question. Are we going to be defined by positive or negative reference to all these other people? I thought I would show you something interesting today that came up when I was reading the paper this morning before I got on the airplane. I read in the New York Times on one page a portrait of the modern world. The first article is about Muslims and Jews working together in the West Bank on solar projects to aid farmers without regard to whether they're Muslims or Jews. And then just below the story, Buddhist monk is slaughtered at his temple in Bangladesh. Every day, everything you do, everything you say, every example you create will determine whether the top story or the bottom one shapes the future. And we all have a role in that. Now, I think people are hungry for this. This whole idea about whether we can, each in our own way, build the positive and reduce the negative forces of our interdependence should apply to people on the right, the left, somewhere in between, somewhere way out there. There are so many people who feel they're losing out in the modern world because they think people don't see them, don't know about them, don't care about them, or see them only as members of groups they feel threatened by. Or even more pernicious, they resent them because they see economic and social well-being today, so 8 years after this horrible economic crash, as a zero-sum game. Heads I win, tails you lose. So if they lose, they think somebody else is winning at their expense. Here in the U.S., there is so much alienation, resentment, and fear. You see it in the young people pushing for immigration reform and hoping their families won't be broken up. Children won't be yanked out of school in the middle of the day or parents sent away in the middle of the night. You see it in the young people in the Black Lives Matter movement who see these videotapes of senseless deaths and can easily forget that most police officers do the right thing every day, and we need them to keep our communities straight. You see them in the coal mining communities too, where the present is bleak and people think the future will be bleaker, and they think all of us who want to go fight climate change don't give a rip about what is happening to their lives today, to their self-image and their ability to give their children the kind of future represented by your presence here. Something that marks the dreams of every person who's a parent on the entire planet. You see them in the Muslims in America who love freedom, hate terror, and yet are afraid no one in their country will ever trust them again because of people they would like to help us defeat in the real battlefield of the 21st century, the social media. One that cannot be conquered by walls. You can build one across the Rio Grande. I was in Oregon the other day. I said, we should build one across Canada too, because there are a lot of foreigners in Canada and it put a lot of people to work in Oregon. Then you could have giant seawalls across the Atlantic and Pacific. Then we could send the entire United States Navy to the Gulf of Mexico. Then we could put every airplane the Air Force has up in space. You still couldn't keep the social media out. The last terrorist incident in the United States in San Bernardino was perpetrated by people who had been converted to a destructive, demonic, deathly philosophy over the social media. We need our Muslims to win that battle, and we need to do it together. But let's not get too sanctimonious here. We also see it among social conservatives in America who feel their way of life and the values they hold are threatened by the breathtaking advances that many of us celebrate in the gay rights movement. You see it in rural communities where hunting, fishing, and the need for a firearm for safety, because the nearest law enforcement is 30 minutes to an hour away, they think all of us who are for gun safety have some hidden agenda to get their guns away. It isn't true. And the truth is that down deep inside, 90% of them know we ought to have universal background checks that include exhaustive mental health research. They all want to save kids' lives, but they have been convinced and they feel they're in a zero-sum battle. And that's just in America. This is playing out everywhere. Look at Europe. What is the largest refugee crisis since World War II wrought? In Poland and Hungary, two countries that would not be free but for the United States and the NATO alliance in the long Cold War. They have decided democracy is a real burden, and they'd rather have Russian-style autocracy, just to shut the door and keep the troubles out. In Turkey, a country that is so important to our future, with so much promise, every day authoritarianism and control over the free press increase. In Germany recently, the ultra-nationalists defeated a conservative governing coalition in the midterm election. Britain, the most successful economy in Europe today, is thinking about withdrawing from the European Union, and my friends in Ireland that I work so hard to help in the problems there are terrified about the economic and social consequences to them if it should happen. Africa has 6 of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world and 3 virulent terrorist movements, Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab, and Ansar-Din. So it's not just the Middle East. Syria is divided and broken, millions of refugees. Iraq continues to drift apart when it should be coming together. The Sunni nations are afraid of Iran and what they will do with their economic power and their ability to advance terrorist causes. Everywhere, people say whatever they want about our common humanity, but they're behaving as if all that matters are our differences. At least, that's what the headlines say. The main thing is, you're stuck with this world. You cannot take a pass. You will either help the positive forces of interdependence to advance, or by either inaction or incorrect action, you will facilitate the world you do not want to live in, or you would not be in this graduating class. Again, It's a pretty simple question. What's more important? What do we have in common, or what our differences are? I mean, it's interesting. Most of us in the South who believe in civil rights have spent the vast majority of our imagery in public life trying to remind people of how important our differences are and how diverse groups make better decisions and how we don't have anybody to waste, and therefore we should be lifting the capacities of all people. But it was always in the context of our common humanity. You live in this time, and you have to decide what to make of it. You leave the school at a time when, if you get involved in this for the next few years, you may feel sort of like Sisyphus. You're just pushing a rock up the hill, and then it'll fall back down. And you'll have to decide, will I go push it up the hill again? I hope you will. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody endures failures. The only thing that really matters is what do you do next. It's not important to win every battle. It's important to be on the right side. Dr. King once said, the arc of history is long, but it bends toward justice. You got to be the bender. That's your job. I believe you should be optimistic for 1,000 reasons. More than 1 billion people have escaped extreme poverty since 1990. It's not a headline because it's not a tragedy, but it is a trend line. We've dramatically reduced the number of people dying of TB and malaria on all continents. There has been an exponential scale-up in the provision of medicine to people with HIV and AIDS, to 16 million. And it is now possible, with a few modest changes for no more money, to begin treating everyone as soon as they're diagnosed as being HIV positive, which could give us the power we need to eliminate the epidemic from the face of the earth. The gender gap in global primary education has virtually been eliminated. And I could go on and on. And people today are way too negative about what's going on in America. We're doing quite well, and we know that we can pick up the people who have been left out and left behind. I know it's probably not good form to mention another institution of higher education, but Dr. Bob and I was at Morehead State in the shadow of Appalachia in the coal country the other day. It's one of 3 universities in America, the other 2 being MIT and Caltech, picked by NASA to be a center of nanotechnology research. And I watched 18 and 19-year-old Appalachian kids installing nanotechnology in microsatellites that cost $1 million a piece that I held in my hand. I never held $1 million in my hand before. What's the importance of that? They can do a lot of things big communication satellites can do, and they cost $400 million. And one young man was working on installing all this computing power in a little box made of tungsten that was about 1 inch cubed. It's going to be put on a rocket and sent to the International Space Station. They're part of the future. They don't feel trapped by the past. That's the future we have to give to people all over the world, everywhere. And this young man looked up at me and he said, "Now, Mr. President," he said, "don't let people make fun of your wife for saying we can put 500 million solar panels up. Pretty soon we'll be making these panels with these 3D printers that I made this little tungsten box from, and then they'll be cheap as dirt, they'll be on everybody's house, and we'll be free, and we'll have more jobs and we know what to do with it." Now, why am I telling you that? Because 90% of life turns out to pivot on your attitude and how you look at it every day when you get up. The glass is always half empty and always half full. This struggle to define the terms of our interdependence will go on for a few decades. I do not expect to live to see the end of it, although I wish I could, because I think this may be the most exciting, prosperous, interesting, peaceful time in human history. But along the way, there'll be hills to climb. Do not forget that this is the background of a real life, your life, a life you still have to live. You will write your own story, live your own dreams, suffer your own disappointments. Don't forget that this education you have, including what you got out of the Clinton School, is an incredibly empowering gift. For those of you who come here from other countries, you may find this easier to recall. For Americans, you may have to be my age to remember this, but for most of human history, most of the adults who ever lived anywhere on planet Earth didn't have much choice in what they did with their waking hours. They got up and they did what their parents did. What was necessary to establish a family, have children, and get their children through what was a perilous childhood to adulthood so they too could have their own families and own children. Life was more or less routine. Because of the empowerment of your education, your life is going to be anything but routine. You have choices. They are a precious gift. In the worst of times, they are a precious gift. And never forget it. There are no final victories or defeats in politics, economics, or life. You'll make mistakes. You'll fail. You'll have high moments. They won't last. The most important thing is the journey. Now, nearing 70, I can tell you it doesn't take long to live a life. But the journey is a glorious thing. I would literally give anything to be your age again. I'd let one of you have been president if I could be your age again, just so I could see what's going to happen. I just want to know what's going to happen. For one thing, at least half of you in this audience, in the graduating class, will probably live to be 100 and be able to live without the shadow of Alzheimer's hanging over you because of advances in biomedical research. It's up to you to make it the most exciting, exhilarating, prosperous, and peaceful time in history. But the core of it is the oldest question of human society. Who is us and who is them? How do you define you? If you can keep expanding the definition of us and shrinking the definition of them, you can look at people with whom you disagree and see them as opponents but not enemies, people and not demons, opportunities for conversation and encounter, not targets to hit in a shooting gallery. Every day, we'll get a little better at seeing people we encounter physically or virtually. Every day, we will prove by the example of our lives that the things we share are even more important than our special, fascinating, and profoundly significant differences. So, do well. Do good. Have a good time doing it. Don't forget the journey matters. And in the end, when it's all said and done, what matters is whether you can say people are better off when you stopped than when you started. Whether children and young people have brighter tomorrows. And whether we're coming together, not being torn apart. Good luck, and God bless you.
Okay. That was pretty good. Mr. President, I just told him as we walked by, I said, every time I've thought I've heard your best speech till I hear the next one. Thank you so much for being here. On behalf of the faculty, it is my honor to certify the candidates for Master of Public Service. Will all the candidates who are to receive the Master Public Service degree please rise and remain standing? Dr. Bobbitt, I certify to you that these candidates who have completed all their academic requirements are entitled to receive their degrees.
Now, by virtue of the authority vested by law in the Board of Trustees of the University of Arkansas System, I confer upon each of you the respective academic degree for which you have been recommended with all the rights, privileges, responsibilities, and obligations appertaining thereunto, and offer you again my sincerest congratulations. Thank you.
You may now move your tassel from, I think it's from the right to the left. It is now time for our graduates to take the stage.
Olajumoke Joyce Ajay. Joyce Akiti. Nuruddin Alasan. Berkeley Schleicher Anderson. Catherine Laura Baxter.
Oh, good. Thank you, Phil.
Wenjen Abigail B. Anaya Ramirez Biddle. Catherine Chelsea Brown. Martha Jordan Butler. Melvin D. Clayton. Amanda Lynn Lawson Cullen. Joseph Andrew Forsman. Sarah Lee Fuchs. Georgia Toledo Genoa. Jennifer Michelle Guzman. Anne Louise Haley. Austin T. Hall. Austin Michael Harrison. Caroline E. Head. Amber Denise Jackson. Michaela M. Jones. Henry Edward Carlin. Helen Grace King. Charles Alexander Lannis. Kobe J. McMaster. Amanda Page Mathias. Emma C. McCauley. Molly Gail Miller. Ashley Brooke Moses. Florence Mueni Muima. Darian LaJoy Mull. Michelle Amanda Perez Ferrer. Chanel Latoya Ransom. Madeline Ray Salzman. Edwin Savala Lapule. Catherine Ellen Short. Dustin L. Smith. Becky Ruther Twomley. Nathan Watson. Nicholas C.R. Williams. And in absentia, unable to attend today, Lakaya Jaleesa Wood Johnson.
Let's hear it for the class of 2016. Thank you. As the class of 2016 now become Clinton School alumni, you are joining a group with some remarkable achievements. When USAID sent the first SWAT team to Liberia to build a hospital following the Ebola outbreak, a Clinton School graduate was on that team. When President Obama touched down in Cuba, a Clinton School graduate was there with him. When Syrian refugee families were settling in New Jersey, a Clinton School graduate was coordinating the process. When typhoid was discovered in a rural Ugandan village, a Clinton School graduate traced its source. When food insecurity rates on campuses escalated, a Clinton School graduate developed a national college food pantry startup guide that can be used all across America and should be used. When the success of the Rwandan college student programs was celebrated, scholars coming to America, and with the Rwandan ambassador in attendance, a Clinton School graduate was recognized for designing the feasibility study. When a children's book was needed to showcase the history of her home country, Bhutan, a Clinton School graduate published one. And on May 24th, when Just Communities of Arkansas presents its humanitarian award for the 53rd year, a Clinton School graduate will receive it for promoting interfaith dialogue. And while this list goes on, I know in the years to come the accomplishments of this class will be equally impressive. After losing his re-election bid in 1980, then Governor Clinton said, and I quote, "I still think that most of us are proud of those people in our national heritage and past who cared enough to give most of their adult life to the work of public service. And that is what I still hope to be able to do someday." Mr. President, you have certainly done that and more. I appreciate you, Dr. Bobbitt, Representative Flowers, and everyone being with us today. The recessional will be the Clinton School Alma Mater, We Will Build the Bridge, written by David Watterson of San Francisco, class of 2011. You can follow the words in your program. Let me say that when you think the song is over, it is not. Graduates know this. There is another verse, so just wait for the second part, and please allow the graduates and faculty to recess before you exit. So just sit tight for a few more minutes. Afterwards, please join us for Arkansas Lob Lolly ice cream. We serve this in honor of ice cream fan Nina Veal of Seattle, class of 2014. Our two special flavors today are Clinton School Crunch and Hail to the Chocolate. Now, would you please stand for the recessional and David Watterson's We Will Build the Bridge.
That's funny.
This is our promise to all.
Thank you.